but i- how are we working? Like as we're growing and we're evolving and the REM team is getting more experience, are there
Hmm.
different things you would like to see us do? These are the decisions that you empowered us to make back here, but now should we be making more decisions like this?
Yeah.
Um, 10% per month out. Are you still happy with the 24-hour turnaround? It
Hmm.
just gives everybody a chance to like level set and reconnect. And who doesn't love a good party with partners? So I think it's a
Yeah.
good chance to like get together and just make sure. But it's a culmination of the wheel because without governance, every spoke becomes a one-time initiative instead of an operating system.
Beth and I spoke about the Jitter Wheel, which is a framework that the Resource Management Institute came out with to help organizations implement and be successful with resource management. One of the things that I have found as someone who has helped customers all over the world implement a software specifically for resource management, but also becoming a leader within my organization of that implementation team specifically, um, where I have learned the hard way and I have seen the hard way how the lack of governance and accountability plays a role in, I don't want to say failure, but plays a role in making things much more difficult. Now, let's talk about this a little bit because I think there are two levels here. The first level is going to be the people who are expected to do the work, the people who are expected to create the schedules, to request the staff, to make sure that the skills are accurate and up to date. Governance and accountability there is going to look very action oriented. So, is it making sure that they have their resource plans updated Thursday each week in preparation for their Friday meeting? Is it making sure that they are fulfilling their timesheets if they are that individual contributor to the project? So accountability for these individuals is going to look a lot different. Now, there's also a level of governance and accountability that I think everyone knows is important, but no one really wants to say it because we're calling out, the leaders in our organization here. And that is going to be making sure that your leaders are bought in to the process that you are creating, the process, the tools, the ways of doing things, the type of data you're going to be getting out of it, how you are making decisions, why you're making decisions, things of that nature. Um, Making sure that they are bought into that. And then most importantly, making sure that they are holding themselves accountable to use that data, to use those reports, to make those decisions. So I really hope that today's conversation is helpful, not only in, how to implement a resource management process and the different things that you can focus on within that process, but also understanding the importance of that governance and accountability and making sure that it's successful. Organizations spend a lot of time and a lot of money implementing new systems. And if the change management isn't there, if the expectation isn't set, if the governance isn't there, if the accountability isn't there, that is a lot of time and money wasted. She brings deep expertise and real world perspective to the conversation. And outside of work, Beth keeps things just as interesting. You can find her stand up paddleboarding with her golden retriever, Ella, enjoying life in Tennessee, or, and this is my favorite one, she spent 6 years as the committee chair of the National Cornbread Festival. I love that. So, Beth, I am so excited to have you here. Welcome to What's the Plan?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be here. I was the chair for the arts and crafts piece of the National Cornbread Festival, but it was a lot. And if you are ever in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, the last full weekend in April, please come to the National Cornbread Festival. It's a must do.
That sounds amazing. Expect the arts and craft had to be fun too.
It was
That's
a lot of
awesome.
fun and with a lot of growth, a lot of growth.
Awesome. All right. So, Beth, before we dive in, can you give us a quick overview of your role and how you ended up in resource management?
Sure, sure. So I was in Big Four, and the first few years that I was there, I was in a role called Account Support Associate. And that was on a very large FSO, financial services engagement, um, tens of thousands of hours every year. And I was responsible for account planning, engagement economics, and independence. And of those things, the engagement economics was what led me to resource management, because I understood what leverage meant financially. I understood how the pyramid gets built and how the staff and seniors do most of the work, and then the managers supervise, senior managers supervise, partners sell, right? So I understood this at a level that just became my bone marrow. And then when I became introduced to somebody there that was in the resource management space, and I understood what this role meant, I would have a population that was mine to help grow. And that really resonated with me because I've always been um, in roles where the human interaction is the most important component to me. I love the account planning. I love the engagement economics, independence, whatever. But I love the thing when I got to interact with the people was the most engaging for me. So when I moved into resource management, they call it experience management. But when I moved into that role, I was there for a month, and I knew I would do this forever. I knew that this was what God built me to do.
That's awesome. It's just so nice when you fit in somewhere and fit into a process and really find something that is, I'm going to say rather niche, but also so fulfilling. And I'm
Yeah.
happy that it was resource management.
Yep. Me too, for sure.
Oh, okay, so today we are going to talk about the Jitter Wheel, and that is going to be as a framework for making resource management actually work. So I'm really excited about that. But to get us started and to introduce the concept of the Jitter Wheel, what is it and why is it useful?
So the Jitterwheel is a framework for the Resource Management Institute. Created this. I'm not going to quote the year because I'll get it wrong, but several years ago. And it starts with skills, and it goes around the different components that lend itself to making a good resource management framework holistically. I know we'll dive into each one as we go, but just so at the very beginning, people will understand that it's starts with skills, then staffing, forecasting, sourcing and development, technology, and governance. And they're in that order for a very specific reason. So I think we should start with skills, since you asked.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think that's a good place to start.
so skills, it's a core perspective because it's a human connection.
Yeah.
If you think about, so first of all, skills is not an availability. Availability is not a skill set. So you don't want to look at, it's easy to look at a grid, especially many people that are in public accounting, they love a grid. Good Gantt chart just makes us all happy. But if you are looking only at availability and you miss skills, you will get it wrong.
Yeah.
So in a lot of organizations, staffing starts with who is free, but that's bad because availability is a moment in time and skills are a thing that actually determines whether a team succeeds the long haul. So when we started building a centralized skills database and pushing for quarterly skills updates, like in performance reviews, that changed the conversation. So suddenly the question became, what do we need to deliver well? And who has that capability or right growth? I'm going to use the word adjacency, but who has that, who's bent towards, like I was bent towards resource management, who is bent in this particular niche or industry or whatever. And once you have that, availability becomes a constraint to solve, not the primary decision driver.
Yeah. You're right. I feel like so many people start with, okay, well, who do we have available? And it goes, no. The work is here.
Yeah.
If you don't need my skills, if you don't need a podcast host, it doesn't matter how available I am because you need someone who can do something else. And you're right. Like when people start with availability, good intentions, but it's not going to get you very far.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know, so when we talk about skills, we often talk about how skills can also be a connection. And I believe we spoke about this, when we were prepping for today's episode. So what do you mean by skills are more of a connection?
They're not just
or
keywords on a
about the
profile.
connection. I'm sorry.
No, I understand. They're not just keywords on a profile. They're often transferred through people. So a lot of capability is built through mentoring and feedback loops and somebody investing in you. If you think about like becoming a podcast host, you probably didn't go to school for that. As far as I'm aware, there's no like bachelor's or master's degree in podcast hosting, right?
Not yet.
Okay. Fair enough, fair enough. But if you think about like you graduated and then you met somebody who did this and you met somebody who did this, and then you followed people that
Mhm.
they were your tribe, right?
Yeah.
Everybody needs that. So, 22, 23-year-olds graduating from college with, their accountancy degrees, leaning towards, or some of them already have their CPA. Um, as they step their foot into work the first day, and do you just remember how scary that is? I remind partners of this all the time. Do you remember? Like for many partners, that was a minute ago. But just put yourself back in there for a minute and think about how important it was when you were lined up on your first engagement or your second engagement, because where you get lined up ends up defining you. So um, it's not something you do casually. It's something you need to do very intentionally, because it's with those connections that are made that your tribe gets found and followed. So when I say skills are about connection, I mean, who taught you? Who have you worked with, and what environments have you been successful? Because if you were on an engagement in, I don't know, um, insurance, okay, and you really, you just couldn't get enough of the actuaries and you love that space. Oh, and then somebody put you on a project in a manufacturing environment, you maybe didn't love that. And the opposite is true. Like we need people to audit insurance companies, and we need people to audit manufacturing companies. So there's a place for everybody. Every pot has a lid, right? But you need to do it strategically and thoughtfully, because resource management sees that up close, and patterns repeat.
Okay, so that's a lot of good conversation around, when the skills are initially getting developed and I should say developing those skills when you're more new to the workforce. But what about those people who maybe those skills are developed? They know where they fit in, they know what they like to do. How are you making sure that they continue to develop new skills and be prepared for what's to come?
Oh, that's a great question. So skills are, you learn new skills every day. So, I mean, as soon as you update your skills profile, I hope you learn something tomorrow. Um, it's not reasonable to expect that people update their skills profile every day, but it's important from a resource management standpoint that we are paying attention not only to what skills are entered into the profile, but hopefully you have a headcount that's manageable enough that you can remember, like, what project was Sam staffed on last, or 2 weeks ago, or 6 months ago, such that that might be helpful in staffing the engagements tomorrow. So it's important that the resource management person and the client serving professional are in communication about what I've learned, what I liked. That's important. I was on this project and I loved it. I cannot get enough of, agriculture. I need to be on all of the ag projects, all of them. I do not love, you know, data, which
Those
is,
things are very important to learn because,
yes,
when you're more engaged in the work that you're doing, you're going to be more
yes,
productive and you're going to
yep,
enjoy it more and be a more pleasant person to work with.
that's right. You know what I find is really interesting? It's usually not about the thing. It's
Hmm.
it's not about manufacturing or, agriculture. It's about Sam or Beth. It's who you worked with when you were on that project that sparked
Yes.
it for you. Um, like I go back to, when you were in college, your college degree, if it's hospitality, and then you end up, being a podcast host, it- because somebody you met helped you help you get there. So it's important that your resource management person pays attention to that, and hopefully your firm is set up in such a way that resource management is given that kind of is latitude, because it's often a proxy for what works on a project or what doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it goes both
There,
ways. The principals say that too.
yeah.
You know,
Which
the
is,
prin-
it's such a good point. Like, I think sometimes in resource management, resource planning, whether it's at a firm or it's more of like an internal shop or things of that nature,
Mhm.
sometimes it can feel very transactional,
Yes.
and very, this person has this skills or this person has this availability, things of that nature. And people forget that person is a person and who do they work well with and what do they like to do? And like you said, like, who brought them up and what type of influence is that? I think that is a lost concept sometimes in resource management. It's not just a list of people with their
Yep.
skills and their availability for the week. These are actual people who have actual
Yes.
lives who are doing things for you as an organization.
That's right. That's right. Staffing is one of the most powerful silent career shapers. So the work you get staffed on early influences what you become known for and what leaders trust you with and what doors open next. And that's why the skill set data and development planning really matters. It helps us avoid accidental career paths and instead create intentional growth arcs.
Yeah, which is just so important. Okay,
Mhm.
so you mentioned staffing. So let's go ahead and transition into using your skills as those, staffing decisions.
Mhm.
So what makes staffing specifically so complex?
All of it, Sam, all of it. So it's not just the staffing right now. It's staffing right now and what that means for staffing tomorrow because it's a ripple effect. So if if Sam gets put on a project today that blocks her availability for what might come next, right? And the principal knows that, especially the principal that's like looking out for your availability to see when and then when the next project sells and who else is available. So you and I might both be available at the same time. We might both have the same skill sets. Um, let's say you have a soft skill that it edges you better for this particular engagement, whatever it is. Like your uncle goes to Rotary with the guy that owns that, or like whatever. And it can be so nuanced, or it can be nothing at all. But it edges you just a little bit more. And if you and I are about the same, like we look the same on paper, we have about the same utilization, we have the same degree, we've been on kind of the same projects, it'll be those nuanced things that impact that. But what if it's you and a new person at your rank? Let's say you're a senior and you've been a senior for 3 or 4 years, but then you have a brand new senior that's new to the organization and they don't know anybody. They don't have the relationships that you have with the internal stakeholders or with the clients. But they need to get on a project so that they can become known. But on paper, you guys look the same. They're just newer. Um, it's important that like the partner that wants you because you're familiar, and they'll say all manner of things. It's for client continuity. It's because this project is riskier. It's because this. It's because that. All that is a proxy for I want Sam. We know that. They know that. Whatever. So there's that. But then this person really needs. So sometimes when we propose the new person because that person needs the thing. Now, this might not be great for you because you might really like that project, but it's going to be more important. It's more beneficial for the new person than it is detrimental for you. So sometimes these levers are adjusted in a way that makes sense for the business and for the person and for the client. And at the beginning, it's important that these rules are set out between the resource management team and the business so that the rules are applied fairly. Not just because, this resource manager likes Samantha and doesn't know or doesn't like the new person. They have to be applied fairly. So these rules need to be laid out at the very beginning so that we all agree how we play chess. But we need to
Yeah.
define the rules.
Yeah, there needs to be some guardrails there. Well, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad you brought that up because my next question was going to be is how do you balance those needs and what types of conversations are you having? But you said it. You made the good point. You're setting those rules of engagement up early so that way the expectation is known. It's, I'm the one who, has worked with the client before or has a lot of experience because I've been with the organization. I understand why so and so is being staffed
Yeah.
on this project. It's not
Yep.
personal. It's not anything. It's for the better of the business and it's going to be okay. Like it's going to
Yep.
be fine. Yeah.
Yep. It always works out. Also, staffing is constrained by very real factors like capacity,
Yes.
seasonality, priority work, and the fact that people are humans with goals and limits. Like let's not minimize that. But
Yeah.
it's strategic, it's dynamic, and it requires trade-offs. Like, I
Yeah.
think it's very important to say that trade-offs are made.
Yeah.
And as long as you're honest about that at the beginning, we put that out there as a known.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned trade-offs. How are you handling those conversations when you do have to talk about the trade-off? So even if it's not something, that's about me versus someone else and they just happen to be newer or things of that nature,
Mhm.
how are you approaching those conversations knowing that they're going to be tricky ones? How are those
Mhm.
conversations happening?
That's a very good question. Carefully, if carefully if done well, and I've done them not well, and I've done them well. I think the ones that are done well have have this in common: um, honesty and humility first, because nobody has. Oh, I remember one really bad one I made one time, and I still learn from it. I mean, you you assume good intent, right? And you hope other people assume good intent as well. But you make a decision based on all the things that you've lined out in your steering committee. Like, these are the rules of engagement. These are the rules of the road. This is what I'm reading here. This is what I understand about the client risk. This is what I understand about the complexity or the timing, um, like independence considerations, that this person's not related, like all of the things. And this is the thing that this is what I've decided. And I wasn't playing darts. Like, I was thoughtful and intentional about it. Um, but at the end, it turned out not to go well. So you call um, I was going to say it's like prescriptive, like who you call first, but I always call, this might not be uh, legally written out anywhere, but I always call the person that was impacted first. Like, yes, the principal is going to be involved and the manager going to be involved, but I always call the person first because that's who like when all these people go to bed at night, it's the person that it happened to that's the most impacted. So, um, I would have the conversation with the staff or the senior first, and then call the principal and explain what happened and why you made the decision. Most principals understand decisions like this aren't they're made with a level of thoughtfulness and strategy that comes with the role. So you, like you do anywhere, you own up to your mistakes and you do better tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you said that. I think that makes me hopeful for how people are approaching staffing and approaching their planning
Mhm.
and making these decisions.
Right.
Again, because like we said before, these aren't just people, whose names are on a list. And you
Right.
you said that you were methodical. You were not playing darts and just seeing what would happen.
Yep.
Um, it's like you said, we are playing chess here and we're all figuring it out, but learning from
Yep.
our mistakes and doing better in the future, knowing you had good intentions then,
Yep.
very, very important.
I can't
Okay.
overstate the human part of it enough. So, in fact, this morning I was on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, and a client server that I had when I was in Big Four left his job in Big Four to go uh, re-enlist, I think is for the Israeli army. And given the construct for what we have, our environment today, I just pinged him on LinkedIn. I'm really thinking about you and I hope you're doing well. And he just pinged me back when I rebooted my computer that you said, you suggest I do. He had pinged back on LinkedIn. I'm in Israel now and things are okay and we're keeping positive attitude. This is a relationship that is like 10 years old. I staffed him when he was a staff or a senior. I cannot overstate the human part of it enough. That is where, like, I can tell you now the names of the clients that he was on and who the partners were.
Yeah.
You have to
It's
be
just
intentional about it.
intentional and just to have that connection and to like I just think that's so powerful and honestly we met at in person
Mhm.
at the Resource Management Global
Mhm.
Symposium and it was one of the reasons why I reached out to you to be a guest on this podcast and
Mhm.
we hadn't spoken in a year, like we had each other on LinkedIn, great,
Mhm.
liked some stuff, all of those things. um and so we, just a minor connection, but even then it's making those connections, it's
Yep.
understanding people, reaching out when you feel called to do so because you do know them. It's all relationship building.
Yep. That's the first thing a resource manager needs is relationship building. That's job number
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and move on from staffing and go to the next part of the wheel, which is going to be, I'm thinking of this as how confident are we in what is coming? And so we're
Mhm.
going to start talking about forecasting. Um, Forecasting is something that everyone wants. They want it done right. And they want to trust it, but it's also where a lot of frustration comes up too. So why is it so hard to get forecasting right?
Humans. Humans are the
So
reason.
back to the same point.
Yeah, I had the same thing. So forecasting is the convergence of multiple imperfect inputs. So you've got like scope changes, client delays, or client hurries, shifting priorities, capacity assumptions, data, like all the things can impact forecasting. For all the things that impact staffing are the same things and for the same reason that they impact forecasting. And it doesn't fail because people don't care. Um, I think it fails mostly because the system isn't set up for rapid updates and firms underestimate how quickly reality changes. And that's why we emphasize, communicate anything that impacts the forecast quickly. I don't care if you're going on vacation and you'll be gone for 1 week, or you're having a baby and you'll be out for 3 months, or your schedule, the client delayed, now you have open capacity, whatever it is. I made tubes of chapstick one time for the population that I was serving before that said, if you get on a plane, tell me.
Yep.
If you're getting on a plane to go see a client, or if you're getting on a plane to go to the Bahamas, if you get on an airplane, like as you're boarding the plane, ask yourself, did I tell Beth? Think about that. Every time you get on a plane, now that was years ago, when people traveled all the time, and that's not so much of the environment now, but I don't
Yeah.
like whatever you set out to do that day, your resource manager should know. If you're
Yeah.
going on vacation, if you're going to go to the client, make it clear because everything you do impacts the forecast. Everything you
Yep.
do.
Yeah. That's a good point of like you said, the person going on vacation, the person, maybe unexpectedly being sick and maybe being off longer than expected or things of that nature. It does impact the forecast. And that kind of leads me into the next part of it because you already mentioned this, but data and
Mhm.
forecasting the quality of your forecast is really only going to be as good as your data is, which
Yep.
and all of those inputs are part of the data.
Yep.
So how much of the challenges are really because of data quality?
A lot. If the schedules aren't maintained forward, or if timesheets or demand signals aren't timely, forecasting becomes a confidence game. And that's why we push scheduling discipline, like keeping schedules updated 6 to 9 months forward and practicing consistent data hygiene. And we've just implemented Workday for all of it, like finance, HR, the whole thing. If the data isn't right, it becomes impossible to forecast or to staff well. So data hygiene, like I preach that like it's my job. I mean, keep your timesheets updated, let your resource manager know where you're going. Resource management, we have staffing meetings every week with the different populations of the pockets that we serve. Like this, we rolled this 6 to 9 months ago, but every week we're asking, has this changed? What has changed? Not has this changed. We ask what has changed? Who's coming? Who's going? And in busy season, it's even more impactful to have the data right because the positive effects of having good data are higher and so are the negatives. So it's very important to maintain that with constant staffing meetings, constant contact, timesheet integrity, all of that. So all of it comes down to data quality.
Yeah. This is a little bit of a sidetrack, and I'll bring us back in. But one of the things that I have heard from some of our users is that they don't want to implement timesheets and they don't want to ask people to be so specific and so intentional about their data input because it almost feels like micromanagement or it feels like one more task to do, one more thing I have to do. What would you tell those organizations? Like, what is the value you're going to get out of it? Like, what's the hard conversation to have there?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to think of an analogy that shows my passion about this. So first of all, I do understand that timesheets are a nag and a bummer. Like I don't like it too.
Yeah.
Okay. You get your teeth cleaned every 6 months, right? But you brush
Yeah.
your teeth every day, dude, right?
Hopefully
And you
twice a
do
day.
that or twice a day. Yes, floss too. But the better care you take care of it, the better your return on your investment will be. So for timesheets, it's not just one piece of it is to make sure that, utilization is it's a something that measures productivity. So yes, part of it is performance management, but also we need to know how much of the client work was actually done, how much of it was completed. Because if you set out that this was going to take 100 hours and you're only 80 hours in, and you only know that because you add up timesheets, then you can be assured that you have about 20 more hours left on that engagement. This is an imperfect example. Sometimes we blow through the budget a lot faster, and then there's 100 hours billed, but there's still more work to be done. Sometimes we get done in 10 hours and we thought it would take 100. Like, I know that there's imperfect scenarios here, but just stick with me for the easy math. So if you know that you're 80% done because you have 80 of the 100 hours billed, you know that there's 20% left. If we weren't doing timesheets, we would have no real record of how far done we are. And it's not just that one project, right? Because it's part of this overall chess game. And the chess is not just a chessboard of utilization, it's a chessboard of finance and client delivery and all of these things. And without the timesheet piece, we don't know how far along we are. We have to know that piece. But for what it's worth, I don't like timesheets too. Like, I don't like filling them out. And mine are not complex. Like, I have like 3 codes I pick from. But I've been in a client serving role, and this is kind of funny, but we had the Beth Hunter code on this particular engagement that I was in because I was such an anomaly. I didn't do what the other people did. I did all the things that you didn't have to have a CPA to do. So I had my own code. But one of my jobs there was to chase people out of the general code so that we could know, like, yeah, you can hit like the big code here, but then there were other activity codes underneath you had to know. And people would want to do their timesheets on Friday and be like, I'm just going to stick it in general and I'll sort it out next week. And I'd be like, all right. So on Monday morning, it was my job to chase people out of the general code, which was a pain, but I did it. Learned a lot from it. I also, in Big Four, I built a bot from what's that called? Power Automate. And now when I say I built a bot, I asked a friend to build me a bot and they did. But it would look at timesheets. And if you hadn't completed your timesheet yet, it would remind you via Teams. You get a ping. You had to tell the bot, like, I've done my timesheet. And my husband said, you are the only person I know that would automate nagging. I was like, you're welcome. You're welcome. But I got our missed timesheets down from 10% to under 1%.
That's crazy.
I know. I
That's
was
crazy.
super, super proud of that. I was
Yeah.
super proud of
And
that.
we have timesheets in our product, and that is it's not funny, but the administrators and the leaders of the department who are implementing our product, they want those emails, and they want them like, I want it Monday, I want it Tuesday, I want it Thursday, I want it Friday, I
Yep.
want it CCing the vice president by Thursday, like all of
Yep.
that. And it's funny because then the end users are like, hey, these are too many emails.
Yep.
And I just have to be like, so if you just filled out your timesheet, you want to be getting the emails. This is
Right.
how this works. And as someone who also has to fill out a timesheet,
Yep.
I get those emails and I'm like, oh, yeah,
That's what that's
about
for.
that.
Yeah. 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 So it was a big, debate about how we were going to roll this out. I remember talking to I had like 260 client servers, and I was like, look, I'm going to build this bot. I am going to build this. You tell me how often you want to be nagged. Like, this is the game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it. You are going to get nagged, but you tell me the frequency. So we agreed on it. I don't remember what it was now, like twice a week or something. But it would only, like, if you hadn't completed your timesheet. And that was a
Mm-hmm.
big part of like the technology, because if you just blast everybody with the email, hey, do your timesheets, you get tone deaf to that, because either you've done it or you're not, but then you start to see that in your inbox as something you just ignore.
Yep.
So we're very strategic about, hey, do this. I'm not kidding. I mean it.
Yeah.
I mean it. I mean it. I mean it. And you had to make it go away. It was pretty funny.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that. Okay. So what would you say? So when we had talked when we were prepping for this conversation, you had brought up a 10 10% per month out concept. So can you explain what that is? Because we're still talking about forecasting here. So can you explain what that is? How did you come up with that? And how does it help set the right expectations?
I'd love to. So this is not a number that I made up myself. Some wise partners from my former firm explained this to me, that it's a methodology that's used very broadly. So 10% per month out. And it's based on the premise that, the closer you get to Friday, the closer the more clear your weekend expectations or weekend plans will become. It's a practical expectation. As you move further out, your certainty, uh, it decreases. So you need a tolerance band that encourages accountability without being punitive to reality. It's a way to keep leaders aligned on forecasting as range while driving discipline updates. So if every weekday is a month, by the time Thursday rolls around, you should be within 90% confidence you know what you're going to do on Friday. But Monday, maybe you just knew you wanted to go out to eat. But by the time we're getting close to the weekend, you know what restaurant and with whom and that kind of thing. And we are tracking that at Raymond, and we're tracking about 10% per month out.
Wow. I love that concept. And I love that you broke it down so easily of that comparison of on Monday, you roughly know what you want to do over the weekend, but by Friday, you should probably actually know what you're going to be doing. So as you get closer, things get a little bit more clear and you have that level of certainty. Okay. So one of our last things about forecasting that I do think is really important to touch on is the connection and flow of information between the resource management, the staffing, the forecasting, and finance. Why is that connection so important, and where is the biggest disconnect?
So often not often. Let me start again. Finance wants clean predictability, while RM is dealing with moving inputs. So the bridge is shared definitions and shared discipline. If capacity assumptions and scheduling standards and update cadence, if all of that isn't aligned, the numbers drift. Also, if the way a firm measures utilization isn't tied to how finance measures revenue, there's going to be a disconnect there. We'll talk about that when we talk about utilization calculation at the end, but those two things have to be aligned. But that's why governance matters, because it's where we define KPIs and operational rules to make forecasting more and more trustworthy over time, because you have, demand signals like, Salesforce or, whatever your tool is to measure opportunities and demand. But from that and how capacity changes based on what clients are ready and all the things, you have to have all of that defined for finance to be able to, you have to have it defined and in practice before finance can reliably partner with you as a forecaster of how much money we're going to make here this month, next month.
Yeah. I think one of the concepts that I really hope this podcast overall, generally speaking, really reinforces is that resource management is not done in a silo. It's not done to make project managers hit goals. It's not done so that way your client reps and they can make sure that they're making the client happy. Resource management is tied to direct business success and your finances and your hiring and, all of those things that make a business run. And I think a lot of times resource management is seen as being a siloed, oh, that's a nice to have. And it's like, no, this is actually a must have in order to have a business that is profitable and growing and in the right direction.
Yep. It's very important when you look at workforce planning. Very important.
Yeah. Very important, which I'm happy you mentioned that, because that is where we are going to go to next in the Jitter Wheel. So that workforce planning, the talent development. So talking about a partnership with finance, getting more into that HR partnership. So really want to start with, you had mentioned the resource managers are seeing those patterns, whether it's patterns in demand, client work slippage, patterns in the skills being developed, your people. How does that show up in areas like performance and development? Let's go ahead and start there.
Oh, that's an excellent question. And this is my favorite piece because, I say that about all of them. This is my favorite, but this one. So resource managers see patterns early. They see who's getting stretch work. They see who's getting stuck in the same lane, who's underutilized. And the most important one, I think, is who's overused, who's over relied upon. And we can see this before it becomes visible in formal review cycles. So lean on your resource management team to tell you this person is working too hard and this person needs some opportunities to grow. We can apply the gas and the brakes at the same time because you have both of those mechanisms in the vehicle. But that's why integrating skills review into the current like performance cycles in quarterly conversations is very powerful because it turns pattern recognition into action.
Very important. Very important to bubble those things up.
Yep.
So, knowing that these things lead to each other, what does a strong partnership between an HR team and a resource management organization actually look like? Like, what are those? What is that structure? What does that look like?
Very fun. So in my former firm, I had a weekly meeting that was like an operations meeting, and it was me, resource management, recruiting, finance, human resources, and our business partner that was over all of it. And we had this meeting very strategically on Thursdays in advance of our staffing meeting on Friday. So you have this meeting of all these people together, and it's every week. So we are aligned. We are lockstep, like finance and HR and resource management are chugging along with the business every Thursday. So we're seeing like this person's, the utilization in this department is going up and in this it's going down. And you can see all manner of trends just by having these 5 people in the same room together every week. Very, very important. You have to have a pretty mature resource management function to be able to support that. Like finance and resource management need to have conversations also outside of that. But for resource management and human resources, we are now implementing at Raymond that our resource managers are talking to our HR VPs. I believe it's a monthly cadence for each department. And that's very important because, it's interesting to me how in staffing meetings things come out and you can quietly observe that, oh, Sam is available for the 4th week in a row. Or Ella she can't get a break. She's, 50-hour weeks and it's not even busy season. And sometimes that can get signaled from resource management to human resources, in a channel that isn't, in a channel that happens before, it can happen in advance of any preventative. We can help prevent any catastrophes or protect people from leaving. There's a lot of good things that can come out of those conversations. It happens the other way too, where sometimes through human resources coming to resource management, hey, so-and-so's having a hard time. Please watch out. Maybe a project that puts them in this space instead of this space, or with this person and not that person would be helpful. So conversations like that are really, really helpful if the business is ready for that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really good point too. So how would you approach, so knowing that you would, talk with HR and hopefully get in front of things and hopefully they're bringing things to you too. But in those situations where someone is struggling or maybe they're not being staffed for, those 4 weeks, what conversations are you having with that person? And also with, the people who are working with the client and wanting specific people. How are you having those conversations?
Sometimes they're silent conversations, to be very candid. So sometimes you position somebody, you propose somebody ahead of somebody else to avoid a possible catastrophe here, and I love transparency. Like, I think sunlight is the best disinfectant. I love it. But sometimes to protect somebody's career, you don't put Susie on a project with Sam. And you know that. And if you know it, the partner probably knows it too. But so don't propose Susie, propose Ella. And then you don't have to have, the awkward conversation. Now, if this is systemic and it's not just Susie and Sam and it's Susie with anybody, like that's a bigger conversation. It's very different, but you can steer around nuances like that to give everybody the best opportunity for growth for their career trajectory and for best client outcomes.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I like that. I like the kind of delineation of if it's between two people, maybe it is more of that silent
Mhm.
approach. But if it is that more systemic issue, then okay, take this action because I think both are very true.
Yep.
Um, Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our next one here. So, this is a lot of work, and it's not all just happening in your brain or on a whiteboard or on a sheet of paper. You are going to need tools and systems in order to help you support this. So, a lot of organizations feel stuck with what they have today.
Mhm.
I know that I work with a lot of organizations who are doing a lot of their resource planning in Excel. It's working for some, not for others.
Mhm.
But knowing that and knowing what a positive impact resource management has, how
Mhm.
should leaders be thinking about technology when it comes to resource management and making sure they're investing in that?
Um, well, like I said, we just implemented Workday, which doesn't have, it's not about the resource management. We use another technology for resource management. Um, I think I think so much about this topic. I'm trying to think about how to um, say this in a way that is helpful. So the software, the technology that you use is important. It needs to have seamless integration points with other technologies you use, such that you have factual data about, name, rank, serial number, department, start date, end date, um, very just the black and white data points have to flow to it well. Um, I'm also assuming that we are north of Excel. I think Excel is a fantastic tool and it does a lot of really great things. But I'm saying for a company that manages, you know, I don't know what the number is. I don't know what the magic number is, but Raymond has 1100, and I'm glad we have a platform that's bigger than Excel.
Yep.
Um, you need to have a tool that integrates well with where the HR and the finance data sits. Um, and it needs to be able to, from a resource management standpoint, like prove our worth with reporting. We need to be able to like click a button and this is what utilization is,
Yeah.
or click a button and this is what the forecast looks like. Um, I don't have a magic number in my mind about it. If you're not spending this much money on the tool, then you're not getting what,
Hmm.
you should have, it's X dollars per client server. I don't know what that
Hmm.
number is.
Hmm.
We are fortunate enough to have a software that works, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the investment is really important. And I'm glad you bring up like there is no magic number in terms of cost. I
Mhm.
honestly I like to think of technology as wine. Just because it's old or just because it costs more does not mean it's better. It does not mean it's good. It just means that the organization is charging more for it. So, I like to think of it that way. So, with that said, what do you think matters the most? Is it the tool or is it how the organization is using it?
How the organization uses it, 1,000%. I don't care what the tool is. That's true with everything. I mean, if you have like a shovel in your backyard, does it matter if the shovel is produced by Steel or DeWalt? No, it depends on if it's being used well. My son is 6'6" and weighs about 210 pounds, and he is built. If he's using a shovel, the outcome is going to be different than if my bony behind gets behind and tries to use a shovel, right? So it's not just the shovel; it's how it's being used. Ask the plants that are affected by what Max digs up. So it's 1,000% how it is used and what kind of data it produces and how that data can help your firm grow.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. You can have the best tool on the
Yeah,
market, whatever that may be. And if you're not using it well, if your systems don't align with it, if your processes, okay. Like it's just another line item that you're paying for.
that's exactly right.
So let's kind of talk about the mistakes that people make when they are trying to improve the resource management through technology. So I'm almost thinking, someone buys the tool, they think it's going to
Mhm.
be the best thing in the world and everything's going to be perfect. um I can think of several mistakes that people are making with this, but what's one mistake that you have seen or experienced when people are thinking everything's going to change because of this tool?
Mm, such a good question. Um, what is one mistake I've seen? Well, it doesn't happen like that. It's not the flip of a switch. It
Mm-mm.
requires good data at the beginning,
Yes.
to produce, garbage in, garbage out, good stuff
Hmm.
in, good stuff out. But it's not just the good stuff, it's what to do with it once it gets inside of technology.
Yes. 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 I completely agree with that. As someone who has worked with several customers, whether it is, many years into one platform, it is brand new with one platform. Unfortunately, there's no one-stop shop, one quick fix, whether it's poor change management, whether
Mhm.
it's poor data, whether it is, poor processes or ownership in the wrong area. There's a lot that goes into making sure that a platform is successful for you, and a lot of times it's going to require the organization to change in some way, in some fashion, and that's just reality. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Probably going to
Yep.
get better for it,
Change management is a
actually.
good piece of it. And at Raymond, REM reports through the Director of Innovation and Change Management. So I tangentially see all the work that he does during this last year with Workday, all the change management things that have been added to his plate. Um, but yeah, it's a big piece of it is alignment. And I would say, if anybody at Raymond is listening to this, hear this. But for anybody else on the whole big planet too, assume good intent. When you call the help desk because your computer doesn't work and you don't have first time resolution, uh, it's not that guy's fault. Like, they're doing the best they can too. And when you have something as big as like Workday, that changes everything. So we are redefining our operating model. Um, just have grace, assume good intent, and be kind to your fellow workers because they're doing the best they can with the tools that they have too.
Yes. Just keeps on coming back to being a good human. Just being human.
Mhm.
We're all human.
Just be nice. Play nice.
Just be nice. Yes, I agree with you. So, okay, let's go into the last piece of the jitter wheel here, which is going to make sure, like we just talked about, the change management, the
Yes.
longevity of all of this,
Yes.
and making sure that things are sustainable. So, let's talk about governance in resource management. What does that mean?
It's where we define how we do resource management here.
Hmm.
Who owns what, how decisions get made, how we stay accountable across skills, staffing, forecasting, development, and technology. And it's communicating that, and it's revisiting it. So when we did our steering committee meetings for our audit team, we met, we had one meeting for each Jitterwheel bubble, and then we met every quarter for the first year. And we said we were going to only meet every year annually thereafter. But this
Hmm.
is in year 2, and I'm thinking we need to do this at least quarterly. So I'm going to put those on the calendars. It just doesn't hurt to, touch base. I mean, we've had 2 of the principals that were part of this have retired this year. So there's new people that maybe need to get brought in. And I just think you can never communicate too much. Um, so I think after busy season, I'm going to put another touch point on the calendar, and we'll revisit this more than annually. But it, how are we working? Like, as we're growing and we're evolving, and the REM team is getting more experience. Are there different things you would like to see us do? These are the decisions that you empowered us to make back here, but now should we be making more decisions like this? um, 10% per month out. Are you still happy with the 24-hour turnaround? It just gives everybody a chance to like level set and reconnect. And who doesn't love a good party with partners? So I think it's a good chance to like get together and just make sure. But it's a culmination of the wheel, because without governance, every spoke becomes a one-time initiative instead of an operating system. So it's
Yes.
important to revisit all the things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, I think I think a lot of people, when they implement new processes or implement the wheel or implement a tool or really just try to start going down somewhere, they
Mhm.
do, you, like you just said, you want to put quarterly meetings back on because you think it would do the company good. There's nothing wrong with that.
No.
Like, I feel like a lot of people are like, well, if we have to have a meeting about this, then something is wrong. Like, we already established this.
No.
And, the organization you were last year may not be the organization you are this year. What do you need to change? What do people hate? What is the one thing that always drops? Is it because people just don't like doing it and it's hard? Or is it because it's, there's something about the process that just isn't working for the team and it's unnecessarily hard. I think, those conversations are just so critical to have in any aspect of a business, any aspect. Okay, so talking about governments, let's go ahead and talk about measurement real quick. So what kinds of things should teams be measuring themselves against?
Okay. I love this question. I love it a lot. So I want to say very loudly that utilization, I don't love that as a measurement for the resource management team because we aren't responsible for it. We help report it. Now, the things we do every day, like when my team comes to me and they're like, I have all these things in the air and I'm overwhelmed and I don't know what to do first, I say, stop and think about the thing you can do that impacts utilization the fastest, the most. Do that right now. Everything else can wait. Having said that, utilization is a metric that we do have for one of our departments. But we use practical operational KPIs like time to respond. That is really important. Your team needs to know how they can rely on you. If I send a staffing request, when am I going to hear back? Okay. We say 24 hours, but it's most generally always faster than that. There are 2 times I can think of that it didn't happen within 24 hours and they were exceptions, but it's usually like right now, right? Time to fill. How long does it take to fill it? Because time to respond and time to fill are different animals. Okay. Compliance, 2 very different things. Compliance, skills data management, time entry, forecast accuracy, productivity, process requests. I can see you could squeeze in, although we don't, like headcount and operating models and like onboarding progress. Like how fast do you get somebody up to speed? I want to go back to headcount for just a second. I made this list and now I'm like, I have 11 things I want to say about each thing. Headcount is important. So I've had very, very big headcounts and I felt like my hair was on fire and I worked way too many hours a week and I didn't have a good work-life balance and I didn't eat well and my blood pressure was high and all the things. And I try really hard to make sure that the people on our team have, I like the number like 100 to 150. Where they are more than that, their client servers expect less. Where they are less than that, their client servers can expect more. My point to all of that is you need to be flexible with your people, like the people on your resource management team, and your departments in terms of what their expectations are. But I do want to say like the operational KPIs like time to respond, time to fill, compliance, and skills and timesheet, those are things that are your resource management team should have a good pulse on those things. It's not to create like vanity metrics. It's to measure the few things that you can tell whether your resource management team is becoming reliable or not.
Yes. That's exactly what I was going to say, because if your resource management team is not reliable, then you're going to run into delays because they're not staffing in time. If they're not responding to you, then you as a client server, you're not feeling confident that they're actually doing their job. So then you might start reaching out to people, hey, on Teams, like, Sam, what are you doing? Like, can you help me real quick? And so I think those aren't vanity metrics at all. I think that is a very, very good point. And a lot of resource management teams are being, I don't want to say judged, but like their KPIs are around the utilization. They are around, the forecasting. Forecasting is very important. Yes, accuracy of it is what I would say there.
Yep.
But it's the operational stuff. If your resource management team is operationally, high functioning, everything else is going to fall into place. And if it's not in another way, then it's probably not your resource management team. So that's good.
Yep.
Okay. So because you have actually built processes around this Jitter framework, how did you start to implement it? So if someone's listening to this today and they say, this is awesome, I love that there's a structure, I love that there's a framework, what should they be starting to do to implement it?
Oh, good one. So you have to meet with the people to go over the thing. Like you need to get buy-in for that. So I found the best way is to go by department, because each department is different, right? Like audit looks different than managed services, looks different than tax. So meet with each of the departments and do a steering committee session for each jitter wheel with the resource manager and the leaders in that department. Get buy-in, write a charter, and hold yourselves accountable. Christine Robinson did this podcast with Alan Colton, I think is his name, several months ago. And one thing he said just sticks with me very loudly. He was talking about private equity and firms that, when private equity comes in, they want to make all these rules and, ramp everything up so you can 5X and then get out. And what he's learned in this is that some firms think accountability is a really good practice for them, right? Like we need some accountability up in here for you. Me, not. I'm good. I don't need that.
I'm good. Yeah.
So the firms that hold themselves accountable outperform those that don't.
Yeah.
Sit with that for a second, because to say, well, we all need to have, 60% utilization or 24-hour response time or whatever, and that that's good for everybody else. You don't think you need it. Well, guess what, dude? Nobody else thinks they need it too.
No.
Right? So be humble and be amiable to be accountable. It's okay.
Yeah. I think that's a very, very good point here.
Yeah.
Because, whether or not it's the jitter wheel, whether or not it's some other framework, whether or not it's even related to any of this, if you're not holding yourself accountable, first and foremost, yourself could be you, your team, your organization, your company, then you're just writing things down. And what is the point of that? And like you said, people who hold themselves accountable are going to get much further. They're going to be much more successful. And that can be in a lot of ways in life.
Yes. Yeah, it can. If you look at your checkbook or the scale, that tells you a whole lot about yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I was going to tell you real quick how accountable you are.
That's right. Yeah. How many chocolate chip ice cream did you have last night? Well,
right.
If I had a lot last night, that's one thing. But I mean, like over time, I don't have, I don't eat a half gallon of mint chocolate chip ice cream every night over time.
Every night.
I think it's never happened. Yeah. I'm saying over time.
And you know what? Sometimes you gotta have a nice little treat. And, maybe the corporate version of that is, taking 24 hours longer. I don't know. Probably not. That's actually probably a bad idea. Don't listen to that.
No, that's not a bad analogy. Like if the utilization dips a little bit, that's okay. I think, when you measure utilization over the year, and one of the teams we have, I'm struggling with this right now. Their leaders wanted to say, okay, well, if their utilization is, I'm just going to use round numbers, 50%. If their utilization target is 50%, I'm only going to schedule them for 20 hours a week. Well, that means they don't ever take vacation. They don't ever take any training. They don't spend any time with employee development, or you need to build that in so that you can have some mint chocolate chip ice cream.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That is a very good point. Well, and it's kind of like it's the ebb and flow it's when you take the step back and taking the step back is actually very important. Otherwise, you're going to get so in the weeds and so focused on details that does this actually matter? Probably not. But taking that step back is so important so you can understand, okay, in the grand scheme of things, where are we at? How are we compared to last time? Do we think we need to pivot based on what's going on and where we know that we want to be? Exactly. I think that is really, really important. But Beth, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate you. I'm so excited to see you soon. And we'll talk soon. Thanks for listening to What's the Plan, hosted by me, Samantha Varner, and produced by Kyle Wirtz. This podcast is brought to you by ProSymmetry. If you have questions, episode suggestions, or just want to say hi, we'd love to hear from you. Email us anytime at whatstheplanpod@prosymmetry.com. Until next time, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.